To have and to hold. As usual, after the strawberry season was over in Santa Maria, Papa decided to move us to the San Joaquin Valley in Central California to pick grapes. Like the year before, we had spent the summer months picking strawberries for Ito, the Japanese sharecropper. This time, however, we were not going to Fresno to harvest Mr. Sullivan's vineyards. Papa did not want us to live in Mr. Sullivan's old garage again. So we headed to Orosi, a small town a few miles southwest of Fresno. Papa had heard that a grape grower there named Mr. Petrini had nice places for farm workers to live. We packed our belongings and left Santa Maria in September, the week school started. Papa drove. Mama and Roberto sat in the front seat. My brothers Trampita, Torito, Ruben, and I sat in the back. Rora, my little sister, slept on Mama's lap. Everyone was quiet. The only noise from passing cars and the droning of Kakaricha's motor. As we passed by Main Street School, I reached underneath the front seat and pulled out my penny collection, which I kept in a small white cardboard box. I then felt my shirt pocket for my blue notepad. I took it out and placed it on the box and held them both tightly in my hands as I stared out the window, wondering what Orosi would be like. After we had been traveling for a few miles, I put my notepad back in my shirt pocket, took the top off of my coin box, and started looking at my pennies. I divided them into 2 layers, separated by cotton. On top were my 2 favorites, a 1910 Lincoln head and an 1865 Indian head. The 1910 Lincoln head penny had belonged to Papa, but he gave it to me. We were living in Delano, and every day after coming home from picking grapes, Papa took out a small metal box where we kept our savings and placed the day's earning inside. One Sunday evening, when he emptied the box on the table to count the money, a penny rolled out and landed next to me. I picked it up and handed it to him. "Do you know how old this coin is?" he asked. "No," I said. "It was made in 1910, the year I was born," he said proudly. "It's a very old penny," Mama said, chuckling as she cooked supper on our kerosene stove. Papa glanced over at Mama, laughed, and replied, "It's only a couple of years older than you, vieja." Holding it in his hands, Papa continued, "The revolution started the same year." "What revolution?" I asked. "The Mexican Revolution," he responded. "I don't know the whole story," he said apologetically. "I didn't go to school, but what I do know I learned from listening to corridos and to your abuelita Estefania. She told me that during that time many of the rich hacendados treated campesinos like slaves." "Did Abuelito Hilario fight in the revolution?" I asked. "No, mi hijo. My father died 6 months after I was born. But your abuelita favored the revolution just like all poor people did. I also heard that many hacendados buried their money and jewels in the ground to hide them from the revolucionarios. Many of those treasures have not yet been found, but they say that the yellowish-red flames shoot out from underneath the ground where the treasure is buried, and that you can see the blazes from far away at night." Then, with a twinkle in his eye, he added, "I don't know if that's true, but that's what they say." Papa reached out and took my right hand and placed the penny in it, saying, "You can have it. This way you'll never forget the year I was born, and if you keep on saving pennies, someday you'll have your own treasure." I was so excited I almost forgot to thank Papa. I examined the penny closely. The year 1910 was worn. That is when I started collecting pennies. I liked the older ones best. As we made our way up the San Luis Obispo grade, I placed the Lincoln head back in the box and took out my 1865 Indian head coin. Carl had given it to me when I was in 5th grade in Corcoran. He and I were good friends at school, and when we found out that we both collected coins, we became the best of friends. We made sure we each got on each other's team when we played ball during recess, and we ate our lunch together every day. One Friday after school, Carl invited me to his house to see his coin collection. As soon as the last bell rang, We ran to his house, which was only 3 blocks away. When I walked in, I was amazed. I had never been inside a house before. The rag underneath my feet felt like a sack full of cotton. The living room was warm and as big as the one-room cabin we lived in. The light was soft and soothing. Carl then showed me his room. He had his own bed and his own desk. From the closet, which was half full of clothes, he pulled out a cigar box and several dark blue folders. "These are my pennies," he said, opening one of the folders. His coins were all neatly organized by year. My eyes and fingers went straight to the oldest. "That's an 1860 Indian head," he said. "I thought all pennies were Lincoln heads," I said in surprise. "Oh, no," he exclaimed, opening a cigar box. "See, I have lots of them." "I'll give you one of my Lincoln pennies for one of your Indian heads," I said. Carl thought about it for a while and said, "You don't have to. I'll give you one. Pick the one you want." "Thanks," I said excitedly. I quickly went through the loose pennies in the box and picked one made in 1865. It was the oldest one I could find. On his way back to school to catch my bus, Carl said, "When can I come to your house to see your collection?" His question took me by surprise. I never thought he would want to visit me at our house, and after seeing his house, I was not sure I wanted him to see where I lived. "Well, when?" he asked again, looking a bit confused because I did not answer him. After thinking of possible excuses, I finally said, "I live too far. I'll bring my collection to school. It's not much, just a few Lincoln head pennies." "Thanks, okay. I'd like to see it anyway," he said. I never got the chance to show Carl my collection. That weekend we moved to 5 Points, and I never saw my friend again. I placed the penny in the box and closed it. I looked straight ahead through the windshield between Papa and Mama to see how far we had traveled and to look for the road signs to Orosi. "I am not sure what does Orosi mean?" I asked Papa. "I am not sure, mi hijo," he responded, "but I have a feeling we are going to like it there." I took out my notepad and wrote the word down, breaking it into 2 syllables. Oro? Si. Oro means gold in Spanish, and si either meant yes or if. Based on what Papa said, I figured it meant yes in this case. I closed the notepad and held it in the palm of my hand. It was almost brand new when I found it in the city dump in Santa Maria. Now its blue soft covers were beginning to fade and all its corners were frayed. As I smoothed them out with my fingers, I recalled when I first started to use it. It was in Miss Martin's 6th grade class in Santa Maria. It was the end of January, and we had just returned from Fresno, where I had started the 6th grade in Mr. Lima's class in November. I was behind in English, Miss Martin's favorite subject. Every day she would write a different English word on the blackboard and ask the class to look it up in our dictionaries as fast as we could. The student who found the word the quickest would get a point, and if by the end of the week the one with the most points would get a gold star. I never got a star or a point. It took me too long to find the words, and I did not know what many of them meant. So I liked the idea of writing the words down on my notepad beside their definition and memorizing them. I did this for the rest of the year.